Hello everyone, within this video I am going to be discussing my experience of homophobia within football. I started being a regular at Exeter City Football Club in the season 99-2000. So it's my experiences from that point on, both watching football and playing football at both local and at in a national competition as well, through to the current day. So first up, I am a gay guy, and I came out over the winter of 2003-04. So I've been out for quite a while, and it's 18 years ago, pretty much that I went through all of that. But quite often, I found football to be my safe place, my sanctuary, my place to be able to get away from everything. But there have also been times where I've wanted to get away from football. They are few and far between, but there are a few times when I've wanted to get away from football. So, with homophobia overall, especially in the early years, there were just the sort of like, what's accepted words, normal chanting. For example, whenever a player went down, "Get up, your puff" was chanted, and songs of that nature. But that was considered the norm at the time. So at that time, I didn't kind of bat an eyelid to it. I just thought it was to do that. My first experience of full homophobia within football was actually whilst I was still questioning myself. It was an away trip to Brighton on a Friday night in December 2000, to the Withdean Stadium. And on so December 14, I would have, December 20, I would have just been 14 at the time. And this was back when they allowed kids of my age at the time to go on away matches by themselves. So I was on my own on the supporters coach. I knew quite a lot of people on there, but I was still officially travelling on my own. That has now changed, so anyone under the age of 18 does need to have an adult accompanying them on the supporters coaches. But somehow, purely because we were going to Brighton, which has been battling with Manchester for being the gay capital of the UK for many years, and it kind of has been switching between the two over the last 2 decades. It was purely because that we were on our way to Brighton that the subjects of gay people came up, and whilst I completely butted out of the conversation, I heard every bit. Whilst I can't remember the exact words, the first time I realised that homophobia existed in football was when I heard someone say something started off with a line, "No offence to gay guys, but," you know what's going to follow after someone says a line like that. I'm not homophobic, but I'm not racist, but I'm not anti-Semitic, but you know something is going to follow that. That is in the line of what they just said they're not. But it basically said gay shouldn't be in football. And that was the first time that I realised that there was a bit of a problem within football, accepting LGBTQ plus people. That was on the coach on the way to the game. It wasn't a great day overall. We lost 2-0. Lucky it was only 2-0, and we equalled a Football League record for 10 yellow cards in a match. So it wasn't a great day overall. And that was a long journey home on a Friday night as well. Anyone who knows the roads from Exeter to Brighton, they are not that great. So but the next time was a few years later. It was after I'd actually came out on the following season. So it was the 2004-05 season. Exeter City were in the conference, and we played a team called Crawley, who are actually in our division this season as well, in League 2. It was the only time I've been to their ground. Quite frankly, did not feel like going back. And quite often with clubs, the ones that are getting gobby at the match nearest the away fans tend to be teenagers. So as they were getting gobby, it was one of the most bizarre matches I've ever seen. We won it 1-0, despite the fact we hit the frame of the goal 8 times. We hit the frame of the goal 8 times, 7 of them came back out. The one goal we did score did go in off the crossbar, but we hit the frame of the goal 8 times, and only 1 was a goal. We had a striker hit the frame of the goal 3 times and didn't score. It was a bizarre game to watch. But the Exeter fans started chanting to the Crawley fans, "Does your mother know you're here?" Referencing, "Do your parents know you're out of the house?" basically. And they all responded quite viciously, "Does your mother know you're queer?" Now, anyone who's been to Crawley before, now they have the bit behind the goal completely as just an away end. But at that point, they had it where it would go a little gap in the goal behind the middle, and the gap would be about 5 yards, if that. And that was all that separated the fans. So it was quite close, and that's I did actually, with some of the things that were shouted as well. Like what was it? "Fuck off, faggot," and things like that. It's the only time I've ever felt uncomfortable at a football match for being who I am. So I do know a few friends who are Crawley fans now, and we actually had a football v homophobia game against them about 3-4 years ago. And the team I played for was invited as guest of honours, and we went around the pitch, including in front of the Crawley fans, and they clapped us. So it does look like that at that club, attitudes have started to change. Admittedly, away fans are generally better than home fans, but it's an indication that they are going in the right direction, at least. But in March 2005, that was the only time I felt uncomfortable for being who I was at a match. At that point, I had only played at college level as well. Didn't play at youth level at all, other than college. So the next thing is fast forward into the following season, 2005-06, which was the first time that I played men's football. I was playing for a Sunday League side. And for someone who didn't play any youth football, my debut was pretty brutal. Because I was playing against, my debut was against a team that contained 3 players who the previous year were playing for Tiverton Town. One of those, so all 3 of them had played at professional level. One of them had even played for Glasgow Rangers. So from Exeter to Glasgow Rangers for £400,000 in 1989, end of 1989 he was sold. So it was a bit of an eye-opener as to the level, bearing in mind that this team were not in the top division of the Sunday League either. It was a bit of a rude awakening, to put it mildly. But later on that season, to go through the full story, there's a now defunct website called Face Party, which is a sort of like a predecessor to Facebook, and was out before Facebook as well. That was my first social media site, and got onto that in the summer of 2005. And the club captain, his girlfriend, went on to the website whilst I come home briefly from college, and had literally did a little bit of coursework, updated my profile, and left the house. Now, on that site, the profiles go in order that you see them. The ones that you see have been the ones that have been active most recently. So I believe his girlfriend went and put in a search for gay guys within Exeter, and mine showed up pretty quickly. I had barely got 200 yards from my house when I got a phone call from the manager. So first up, they said what had happened, and then asked if it was true, and I admitted. What happened over the next few days was it shook me a bit. So they had a game that night for which I had put my name down. This was a Thursday, so I put my name down to be available for that game. I was asked to stay away. So they literally asked me to stay away so that they can to basically gauge the reaction of the players. To say my heart sank was an understatement. It was almost it got to the stage where I was thinking, is this it? Am I only gonna last 2 months in the men's game as a 19-year-old? So my debut was at the start of January, and this was in the middle of March. If you're looking to try to find a date, the only bonus from this is I got to see Middlesbrough's fantastic comeback against Alaves in what was then the UEFA Cup. So if you can find the date of that, you can find the date that all of this happened. The next day, I got a call basically to say I could come along on the Sunday, but basically as a spectator. Thankfully, the club welcomed me back with open arms, and the following week, I was back. I was back as a player again. I was back as a team member on the bench, waiting to get on to play again. But how I felt within those few days, I was debating whether to continue my college course, because it was a sports course at college. Because I was thinking, because I was actually almost under the impression that that they were going to say no, don't come back. And then obviously the word was going to get around that I would not get into any club whatsoever. So I was really, really paranoid that but at the age of 19 I would have to give up playing football just because of who I am. So I was debating whether to even though it was my second year, I was debating giving up my college course, even though it was in the final semester basically. It hit me hard. So yeah, no one should ever have to think, am I ever going to play again just because of who they are? It only lasted a few days, but it had a lasting impact. So that ever since then, I've only gone to teams where I know people beforehand, in the local league anyway. One team that I went to after that was literally a group of friends who I knew most of from either college or work in my part-time job in a warehouse, and knew about 3/4 of the team before I'd even joined. That was the only reason why I joined that team as well, because I knew that I would be welcomed and there would be no paranoia about whether I'd be accepted or not, because I knew about 3/4-ish of the team beforehand to know that I would be accepted. Ever since that team folded, I have been in what is called the Gay Football Supporters Network, or GFSN league teams. I have played for a couple in various teams in tournaments, but in 11-a-side I've played for 2 different teams. Now we're going to go to the 2008-09 season, where there was an incident. This shouldn't have had an impact, but it did feel like it had an impact. There was a cup match where there was a female referee. The team we were playing, who were ones that really liked to shout at the ref, and it felt like that because it was a female referee, they changed it from that they withdrew from shouting at her to shouting at me. And because one of their players didn't agree with my offside call when he was about 5 or 6 yards offside, apparently, I quote, showing why gays shouldn't be in football, end quote, just because he didn't agree with an offside call. It escalated pretty quickly, and before I knew it, I was getting punched by 2 of their players on the pitch, and I was getting sent off myself, despite the fact I hadn't thrown a punch. All I'd done was ran onto the pitch. I'd waved the flag to try to get the referee's attention, but it just kept escalating and escalating and escalating, and it ended up with me getting sent off, and 2 of their, despite not hitting anyone, and 2 of their players getting sent off for hitting me. If what had been said had been to me had been reported by the referee to the referee when I had waved the flag. It would have stopped. Well, would have stopped one of the red cards for them and the red card for me. The second player who threw the punch would have been sent off for what he said, regardless. But it escalated, and 2 extra red cards were unnecessarily happened. That then got put all over the newspapers, and they only took quotes from. Well, we declined quotes to give quotes, but the opposition, who had 2 players sent off, did not. And to say it was scathing in the newspaper was an understatement. They were trying to say that their player did nothing wrong. Well, with saying someone is showing why people shouldn't be in football on the basis of their sexuality is nothing wrong. I'm glad not only that club is no longer in existence, but the pub that they represented is now a co-op. So yeah, swings and roundabouts in that one. But if it was a big full-page article on the incident. So I had to put up with that. I had people trying to who would shout the team name whenever I was walking past places to try to intimidate me. It was basically as if the whole pub was homophobic, let alone the club. So that put me off local football, and 2008-09 remains my last season in local football to this date. And I currently have no intention on returning. I am now 35, going to be 36 at the end of this season. Well, technically start of next season. So that I haven't got many years left. After that, whilst that season was still going on, a new LGBTQ plus football team started up in Exeter. I started going to training there. And because I was the only one who had played any football of any sort within the last 5 years at local league, I was therefore deemed as one of the more experienced players. That completely changed how my outlook on football, how I was valued within the club, how I felt valued within the sport. So I suddenly went from being the most inexperienced, hardly getting any game time. 2008-09, I got 2 substitute appearances. My total playing time for the season was about 35 minutes. I went from a 35-minute season to being being one of the most experienced, and people coming for me to do coaching, to give advice on the others. It did lead to a change in position. 2008-09, I was still a striker or centre forward. In the first game for the new club, there were only 2 players who had played before. The other one was also a striker. He'd also just played in the top flight of the GFSN league, which has got 3 divisions, and was the joint top scorer in the top division, despite the fact they had quite a few games called off or forfeited by the opposition just because of where they lived. So officially joint top scorer, but unofficially, but because of less games, he had a much better goal per game ratio than the person who did get the top scorer. So, and they needed someone who had played recently in competitive games to keep an eye on the defence and make sure everyone stayed within a line and try to marshal the defence. There was no way it was going to be the other person. No way were they going to let the person who had the best goals per minute ratio and joint golden boot winner of the top division of the GFSN, which the club were aiming to get into. There was no way they were going to put him at the back. So I ended up moving to left back. I did captain the side that day, but it then led to me eventually becoming a left back because people who were at that game for the first time, i.e. The new coach, saw me play there and just thought they put me there because that's where I play, and because that's where he thought I played, I just got played there. So I got converted from centre forward to left back by complete chance. That's digressing a little. A couple of years later, under that manager, there was an incident that took place against me on the pitch that I was actually completely unaware of until after the game. So we were playing down at the Plymouth Naval Base. The The referee at the time was actually someone who was one of my lecturers on my top-up year up at uni. And I was just having one of those games where I'd made a couple of mistakes, was therefore putting pressure on myself to try to make sure I wasn't making mistakes. So I was then starting swinging at things and missing them. And apparently, up the other end, one of their defenders, when I was swinging and missing, apparently said, "Coy, you can tell he's gay." The manager at the time was playing up front, and he heard this. I was at the other end of the pitch. I did not know this until after the whistle, and the manager was seriously considering walking off the pitch. If I'd known that before leaving the pitch, I would have not shaken any of the opposition's hand, and I would have actually advocated walking off the pitch. It was a friendly, but it would have got it was with an official FA referee, and it would have then got attention, and that club would have received punishment of some sorts, which they would have had to have then given the name of the players who done that, and quite frankly, they would have got what they deserved. Because I was having a bad day where I was trying to volley things clear and slicing them or missing them because I put pressure on myself with a couple of mistakes early on. I'd had a bad night's sleep the night before, which is why the mistakes happened early on, and it was just something that snowballed into a really bad performance. That they were then using that to say, he can't play football, that shows he's gay. If I'd known that, I would have walked. It may have got attention, but I would have walked. That is the last bit of homophobia that I have directly experienced. But whilst watching football, I have up until the last couple of years, the "Get Up Your Puff" chanting was still going on, and there was I personally got this person to stop this, but there was one point where every single time the referee gave a call where there was minimal contact, someone behind me up at Exeter City kept shouting things like, if that's a foul, you must be gay, ref. If you're not allowing contact, you must want a gay sport. Things like that. To try to get in the referee's mind from the stands by questioning his sexuality. I did turn round to him, give him a bit of an earful, and he hasn't done it since. But that was 2018. So we're talking about 4 years ago now. That's the last I have heard at a ground. But that doesn't mean it stopped. It just means that I've not heard it directly. So I do still know of some incidences of homophobia, in particular the ones that have been making the headlines. Reactions to players when they have come out, whatever level they are, whether they are at professional level, retired, low level. I've still heard of some of the comments that have gone online about them. So homophobia does still exist. This month is LGBTQ plus History in Sport Month. It's going to come to a time where we shouldn't need to have anything like this. But until the discrimination is eradicated from the sport, from all sports, it's needed. I belong to the GFSN, the Gay Football Supporters Network. They started in the late 80s, I want to say 1989. Initially was a group of people gay fans in London across various teams that just grouped together to do a social after matches, so that they could be in a safe atmosphere and chat about the results and how their team played and so on and so forth. That then grew and grew, and They now do a national tournament every summer, have a national cup, which I've played in for quite a few seasons, national league system, and this includes England, Scotland and Wales, 3 tiers. It's a mixed league, which was something new as well. So that's why they have to do it separate, because the FAs won't allow mixed teams. So therefore, most clubs don't enter local leagues because they haven't got the numbers of just males that could then allow them to play locally. So quite a lot of them have registered with their local FA just for insurance purposes. But because they have women within their teams, they can't play in the local leagues. So there are some of the bigger clubs who have those numbers to be able to go ahead and do that, but not that those can be counted on one hand. Most of them do have mixed, so they do include females, transgenders as well. We've got the team I play for now, Isker Apollo. We've got a few transgenders on the team. So transgender people play in these teams and leagues as well. So it's a safe place for them to be able to relax and play football and enjoy football. But they have to know about the local teams to be able to do that. And the information is not too easy to get hold of unless someone tells you about it to know to search for it. So we still need to promote anti-homophobia messages within football. Across the whole LGBTQ plus spectrum, just anti-LGBTQ plus within football needs to be eradicated. There are some clubs that have really started to go on. I know Charlton Athletic were the first to take over an LGBTQ club. They took over Bexley Invicta, who was actually one of the teams who I have featured for in a tournament. And now Charlton Invicta. There are a few others that have either formed up their own club or have associated with a club in that sort of fashion. There are also a few others who have LGBTQ plus people in fairly high and prominent places. For example, my beloved Exeter City, one of the person in charge of social media is also LGBTQ plus. So the fact that is someone that is on a lot of the socials, does a lot of the official post-match interviews, that's someone who is getting seen, getting heard on a regular basis from the LGBTQ plus community involved in football, getting seen and heard on a regular basis in football. We do need more. I don't know whether this is still the case, but I went on an LGBTQ plus inclusion event up at the England base. I want to say about 2016. There were quite a lot of trans there, in particular trans women. There was one there who I remember who had great links with the MK Dons chairman. MK Dons, a lot of people hate that club for how they got the club. But for promoting inclusion, they are one of the best. Their owner made his money, or part of his money at least, through the music industry. The music industry is one of the most inclusive industries across the spectrum. So because he knew how to promote it within music, he therefore had a good grounding to be able to promote LGBTQ plus within football. So at MK Dons, they had their chairman was in a great place to be able to put a good setting in to move things forward on that front. But at that one, there was, I think it was the Sussex FA chairman or someone on the Sussex FA board. He was openly gay. And at that point, he was the only FA board member to be openly gay. And I'm not quite sure if that is still the case. And I'm also not quite sure on how many members are on the board as well. But at that point, he was the only one. And quite often, with how things have been portrayed, it didn't feel like he fully got his view across as he would want it as well. That was the impression that I've been getting from some of the promotions that have been going on and some of the things that have come out of the FA following homophobic incidents. Whether that is true or not, only he will be able to tell you. But that's the impression that I've been getting. So we need to keep moving forward. We need to be able to keep promoting inclusivity, because no one should ever have to feel like I had to feel when my manager rang me and told me to basically told me to stay away as they decided whether or not I'd be able to come back to the club. No one should think whether they have got a future within the sport just because of who they are. No one should, at whatever level. That was grassroots. There were 4 divisions in the Sunday League at the time, and this was second division of the Sunday League. No one should have to fear that, whether they are in the Premier League, League 2, in the Southern Premier, or in the Exeter and East Devon District League. Shouldn't have to feel at whatever level they are at. This is quite a lot of people going to be sort of like promoting the big question about players coming out. At this moment in time, there is only one top flight footballer in the world who has come out as gay. There are a few who have done it after retirement, and there was one who did, Robbie Simpson, who did it and then retired while still at a fairly young age. To me, the ones who have done it since they've come out, retired and came out afterwards, or the ones who have continued playing and even dropped down because of it, those ones have been pushing the message forward. My personal opinion is the Robbie Simpson one, because he retired immediately because he felt he couldn't be himself within football. I think that did more damage. That whilst it brought attention to the issue, for a couple of years at least, I felt that caused damage. I would have rathered he had stayed and gone down to part-time than just quit. Because it was literally a double announcement. The announcement that he was gay, and then the announcement that he was retiring. He was only in his 20s. If for people like me, that was then it was giving hope and then immediately taking it away. Because we had the hope that at long last we got a professional footballer who people in young LGBTQ plus can look up to. They can idolise. They can think this is that they can play football. They can that there is someone that they can look at to say I am like they are like me. To then retire and take that away and not be able to see them, it felt like that was doing more damage than dropping down divisions. So yes, it would be good if someone in any of the professional levels, so here in England, that is any of the top 5 tiers. Most other countries, it's top maybe 2 tiers. Normally tier 3 and below tend to be where you start to get a semi-professional come in. You might get the odd professional club, but semi-professional tends to come in at tier 3 and below in most countries. In England, it's tier 6 that it starts to creep in. I think there's 1 or 2 teams that are still part-time in tier 5, but tier 6 is where the majority, or the highest league, which are majority part-time, with the odd full-time club within it. It will take someone, player or manager, to be involved in a professional club from tier 5 upwards to start to get things moving. But with how sport can be, they do need to be someone who can say that they are someone who has been has success. Because I do think that it would also be damaging if someone who's come, say that a man who's gone up through the ranks, they get a League Two club takes a risk with them because they're improving at professional level, but they've done really well at semi-professional level, and then they fail. The ones who are out there with the knives to give out the homophobia, they will use that as ammo to promote their homophobia. So whilst we do need someone to step forward and be the first, realistically, it also needs to be someone who is not someone who's playing in the reserves or struggling. It needs to be someone who is at the very least semi-regular in the first team. The last thing we want is to have someone like a Robbie Simpson, have someone come out and then have them not play, or even worse, have them as a player who gets released because and people before they came out didn't think they were a good player. I'm not saying it needs to be someone within the England squad or an international level player. Doesn't even need to be someone who's English. Just anyone in the professional leagues that is LGBTQ plus and is a regular in their team. So if they're a defender or a goalkeeper in a team that's regularly keeping clean sheets, if they're a midfielder, someone who's regularly creating goals. If they're a striker, someone who's regularly scoring goals. Someone who's got the success behind them, so that they can basically say that they will just get the monkey off their back of having to pretend to be someone they're not, and then basically say that almost say, well, I did played that well whilst I was trying to hide something. Imagine how much better they could be when they're freed. Changing sports slightly to cricket, which is my other passion. There has been one LGBTQ plus player in men's international, and he played one series, and that was a one-day series for England in Australia. I can remember the story of him coming out for personal reasons, but he did not. He was a wicketkeeper batsman. With the gloves, he didn't do too bad. Wasn't spectacular, but he didn't do too bad. With the bat, however, it's fair to say he had a mare. And apparently, after one of the games, I think it was either 5 or 7 match series in Australia following the Ashes Test series. And apparently, after one of them, he just broke down in tears and came out to the management. The fact that after he came out, he was never selected again. Okay, one series is not enough to judge a person, but with he did not play well with the bat. He will admit he did not do well with the bat that series. I think he may have not even got double figures on his average. It was that poor a series, and any really good batsman can have that bad a series. Whether they're Ricky Ponting can have that bad has had that bad a series before. Joe Root can have that bad a series. Smith can have that bad a series. Going back, Michael Vaughan's had that bad a series. A lot of the top batsmen have a series where, be it Test, one day, whatever, have one series where they are having that much of a shocker that their average is considered to be quite poor, and if you're just judging them on that, they'd be dropped. But they all kept with them, or they had already got enough behind them to stay in the team, and they became legends. Some of them are still playing and still able to add to their legendary status. But the fact that this wicketkeeper batsman got dropped after one series after he came out probably said that there's some issues with him, some LGBTQ plus issues within cricket as well. Not to mention the racism scandal that has gone on recently, or come to the forefront recently in cricket as well. That the ECB is trying to currently organise, coming to terms with that, and moving forward to make sure things like that don't happen again. But whether there were any LGBTQ plus cricketers who then suddenly thought, well, if they're going to drop, if he's going to have one bad series and then get dropped after coming out, what chance have I got? It's exactly the same as what's needed, exactly the same issue as what happened with Robbie Simpson. It's brilliant. He's come out. He's not playing anymore in the mid-20s. What chance have I got? We just need someone who can sustain a position in the team at least to step forward and be the first, so that then there is someone who's playing on a regular basis that people can then look up to and then say, okay, he plays well. LGBTQ plus people can play football. Because until one comes out, there is always going to be that question mark. So going down a slightly different issue with sexism. Women in men's football, there have been a few times when a lower league club has been interested or been potentially interviewing a high level female coach, and the Chelsea's head women's coach has come out and said, I'm in charge of Chelsea winning Champions League. Why the hell would I want to go to Grimsby, Doncaster? Why would I want to go there? So that's going to be the same thing until one has proven themselves within the game. There is always going to be that question mark. For going back to racism, the first coloured footballers to play, until there were coloured players that played well, there was question marks. Once they started playing well, once coloured managers started managing to a very high level and becoming successful, until that happened, there were question marks, and that will happen with every form of every group of people that can be discriminated against, until one from that group shows that they can be successful in a sport despite the discrimination. There's going to be a question mark. And what every form of discrimination needs is for someone to step up and get rid of that question mark. So I'm now going to conclude this video, but thank you for watching, and fingers crossed that question mark will be eliminated on multiple grounds very, very soon.